Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna, everybody. I'm just going to change this view so I can see more faces. Om Gyantimirandasya Gyananda Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bheva Patita Nam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivashadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Shri Prabhupada ki Jai. I'm so grateful to be here with all of you. We're here in San Francisco, socially distant from each other, taking all precautions. I want to start just with a little preface here, and that is to say that I'm going to speak philosophically today. And by that, what I mean is not to speak with any insensitivity or to mitigate what's happening in the world right now. A lot of people are suffering. There's a lot of struggle out there. But our job, we hope at least, is to philosophically understand what's going on around us at all times, particularly through the lens of what we've learned from our Guru Varga, the acharyas who are coming in our line. And so don't take anything I say in this class as me being insensitive to the plight of the world right now and the suffering of people. And particularly, there's nothing in this class that you should take as an excuse to be irresponsible. quite the opposite, actually. That this is a time where we have to be extremely responsible. We have to be extremely dutiful. We have to become extremely thoughtful. And so take all precautions. You wear your masks, you wash your hands, you remain socially distant. And just as Krishna tells Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, you do your duty, you have to do it. You have this responsibility, you have to do it, but do it in consciousness of me. And so with that in mind, we're going to talk about the consciousness of me part a little more philosophically, but the rest, please be very mindful and be very careful about what's going on in the world and take all precautions. It's actually quite ignorant of us if we don't, frankly speaking, and so we should try our best. And having said that, the world is in a very unusual circumstance right now, in a very peculiar place, and many people are suffering quite greatly. And we see it all around us. Everything is kind of unstable and on edge. And ourselves, we're struggling too. We're heartbroken at the departure of one of our most affectionate guardians and well wishers, and Shiksha Guru's Holiness Bhakti True Swami Maharaj. And so, not to make light of the situation, we're going to be speaking something from the teachings of Queen Kunti today. But I'm going to start by saying this, which is the probability of our suffering and dying right now during COVID is the same as the probability as it was before COVID. And that's 100%. There's a 100% probability that at some point in time, we're going to have to depart from this world. And we know that, right? Theoretically, at least. But why is it different this time? What is it about this time right now that makes it so different, that we're all feeling the anxiety and the stress and the pressure of what's going on, the weight of what's going on right now? As I think about this, I think about a story from the Mahabharata. When the Pandavas were exiled, there was a particular pastime where they had to look for water. And one by one, each brother would go to look for water, but they wouldn't return. In the end, Yudhishthira Maharaj, he goes and he comes to a lake, and there he finds someone who's there to test him. And we know it's Yamaraj or Dhamaraj. And he sees that all of his brothers are drunk from the lake and they've all left this world, they've all passed away. Or at least they're unconscious at that time. So Yamaraj or Dhamaraj, he asks Yudhishthira Maharaj 100 questions. And he says, if you get any of these questions wrong, then you will meet the same fate as your brothers. So he goes through 100 questions, and the last question he asks is, what's the most wonderful thing? And Yudhishthira Maharaj's answer is very important. He says that everywhere, all over the world, no matter where you are, anyone who's taken birth has to die. Yet no one thinks that they're going to die. And this is the most wonderful thing. And so I was thinking about this. This is what's different about COVID right now, is that this kind of illusion that we kind of recreate, we go through life and we think we're okay. I've lived in some major cities in the world. I won't say which city I'm thinking about right now, but there's one in particular that I'm thinking about. And I would ask people, how are you? And they say, I'm great. I'm okay. I'm great. And I'm thinking, you're great? Like, I know you're not really that transcendental, that person I'm thinking about in my mind. How can it be that you're okay or great? You're like living in quite a hellish condition, the pressure that's upon you, and yet you're okay. But this is what the false ego does. The false ego makes us kind of create this impression and this image that isn't real. Therefore, false ego, ahankar. Everything's okay. I'm okay. I have my job. I have my home. I have my friends. I have my family. Everything's great. I have my 401k plan. I have my retirement options. But what we see right now is that all of that's kind of unstable. All of that's very shaky. Just like the floor behind me is a little shaky, as you may hear. But the truth of the matter is, we're seeing this right now. How many people are unemployed? Millions and millions of people. The job that you felt secure in or you felt some safety in is now gone. Your wealth, well, overnight, practically, the stock market dropped. And so people who had all these investments or whatever else, that shelter is also no longer there. And friends and family, yeah, we're lucky, some of us, to have very loving relationships. But with COVID, we'll find that if we have to lock ourselves away and be socially distanced, no one can even come and see you. And so the veil of illusion that we've created, that I'm okay and everything's fine, there's starting to be a few pinholes poked within that veil. So we start to see that a lot of people now are feeling this frustration, anxiety, and the fear. But the truth of the matter is that same fear is there all the time. Anything can happen at any moment. Our Shastra tells us this, that there's danger at every step in this world, right? Any minute, anything can happen. I don't know. I'm sitting here right now in San Francisco, and please don't take this, anyone who's listening, as like an omen, but like there could be an earthquake right now and this whole building could collapse on us. We don't know. What's different about this time is that illusion's starting to crack a little bit, that everything's fine and I'm going to live forever. So that really brings us to the point of understanding how vulnerable we are in this world, right? You may be the most powerful person in the world, right? I'm thinking of Boris Johnson, who's the Prime Minister of England. I'm from England, so he's a very powerful man in England. But still, he's so vulnerable. He's as vulnerable as the rest of us. Of course, some people are more vulnerable because they have pre-existing conditions, but factually, we're all vulnerable to what comes our way. And so we're going to read here from Queen Kunti's prayers. And we're going to read, if you're reading from the teachings of Queen Kunti, it's text number 7 is where we're going to start. But if you're in the Bhagavatam, it's 1:8-24. And so I'll start. It says, I'll just read the translation. Hey, it's on my screen. Thank you so much. My dear Krishna, your lordship has protected us from a poisoned cake, from a great fire, from cannibals, from the vicious assembly, from sufferings during our exile in the forest, and from the battle where great generals fought. And now you have saved us from the weapons of Ashvatthama. We'll go on to the next verse. So just remember what was just said by Queen Kunti. I'm just going to repeat it really quickly, that, Krishna, you protected us from a poisoned cake, from a great fire, from cannibals, from the vicious assembly, from suffering during our exiles in the forest, and from the battle where great generals fought. And now you have saved us from the weapon of Ashvatthama. So these are not small calamities that she's talking about here. What we're talking about, and if you know the story of the Mahabharata, the Pandavas become exiled, and time again, there are attempts made against their life, right? There are attempts to kill them that happen again and again. She's praying to Krishna, you protected us from all of that. So the next verse, I wish that all those calamities would happen again and again, so that we could see you again and again. For seeing you means we will no longer see repeated births and deaths. So I just outlined some of the calamities that she's talking about. She's saying, I want them to come again and again. Now let's think about this in context a little bit, because right now we're sitting here and philosophically, yeah, it sounds nice, but let's think about it. Who's saying this? Queen Kunti. Now, again, in the context, she's from a culture that's very different to the culture we live in today. She's from the Vedic culture. She's from a culture that's very highly spiritual. And within that culture, there's something called varnashram. These are duties and roles and responsibilities and within society. It may not be so politically correct, but anyway, this is our Shastra. A woman by nature has to be protected. Not because women need to be protected, but because men are very lowly creatures and have the tendency to exploit. And so in order to stop this exploitation, women have to be protected. And so for a woman, there are 3 protections in life. Well, there are many, but 3 in particular through the varnashram system. 1 is the shelter of the father. When a woman is very young, and actually at that age, even the men, you take shelter of your parents, and particularly your father, in a certain culture. That protects you as you're growing up. Well, Kunti Devi's father, unfortunately, he's long gone. So the next shelter, according to that system, for a woman is her husband. the husband protects and cares for and makes sure that there's no exploitation that takes place. Well, those who know the story of the Mahabharata, Kunti's husband died as well. Her children were young at the time. She was on her own. And the third shelter are the grown-up sons, right? So that's all she has. She has her 5 grown-up sons, the Pandavas. And what is she saying here? That their lives have been these assassination attempts have come to them. Their lives have been put in jeopardy time and time again to wipe them off the face of the earth completely. Her last remaining shelter is what she's saying. Let those same calamity, that last remaining shelter I have is being taken away from me so many times. There's been an attempt to take it away from me, and let that happen again and again. This is what she's saying. Actually, because, and then we see it in the last verse that we read, because there is no shelter in this world, actually. So then she says, Bhavato darshanam. This is the third line in this verse. Because when those things happen again and again, Krishna, I see you, actually. When those calamities come, when I realize that actually this place is very unstable, it's shaky ground, well, then I get to see you. And when I see you, then apurna bhava darshanam. When I see you, then I no longer get to see apurna bhava darshanam. I no longer get to see this world of repeated birth and death. And what is this world of repeated birth? This is the place of suffering. But when I see you, there's no more suffering, Krishna. And so Prabhupada speaks about this idea of using a thorn to remove another thorn. That's kind of what we're speaking about here now, is suffering is inevitable. We don't have to be like Queen Kunti. We don't have to pray for calamities to come again and again. Anyone, I can see a few of you on my screen, but if any of you pray for calamities in your life, can you raise your hands? No one. So no one on my screen at least raised their hand. No one in this room, there's only 3 of us, raised their hand. But calamities, do they still come? Still meet calamities? Some of you are now turning on your cameras to put your hands up. So, right? Calamities still come. You don't have to pray for it. It's still coming to you. It's the nature of this world. This is what Krishna tells us. We live in the world of suffering, actually. And some of us may say, actually, I'm not suffering though. Everything's great. Just like the person I'm thinking of in that city. Everything's great. Life's wonderful. Okay, but the real suffering is that it's temporary. And what you're doing is you're trying to build something permanent in a place that's temporary. And that's ultimately suffering, because your endeavors are going to meet with the closing of the chapter. And there's not much you can do about it. That is a greater suffering. And we have to understand that, because when we start to build the world, our life, we start to build in this world, it means that we forget to build it in another world, in our real world, in our real home, with Krishna. This is what's being said here by Queen Kunti. Bhavato darshanam. When I see you, Krishna, then apurna bhava darshanam. Then I don't see this world anymore. And when I don't see this world anymore, what that means is I don't see the suffering here anymore, actually. So we use the suffering that we all inevitably, we don't have to pray for it. It's already coming to us. Let's use that to free us from all suffering. And how do you do that? You have to see Krishna within it. So when Krishna tells Arjuna, always think of me, he doesn't say, always think of me when it's good. Only when it's good, then you can think of me. He's saying always. During COVID-19, if you lose your job, if your health isn't doing well, whatever it means, always think of me. So this is very interesting to me. I look at Queen Kunti because she could very easily play the victim here. We live in a world where a lot of people like to play the victim. We have this victim mentality, right? Anything happens, whose fault is it? Because it's not my fault. It's someone else's fault. I'm a victim and someone else is victimizing me. I'm the oppressed and someone else is oppressing me. Kunti Devi doesn't do that. She could easily do it, right? She could say, my husband was the king and he died and my sons are supposed to take over the kingdom. And we've been exiled and we've had attempt after attempt to take our lives. Why is this happening to me? She doesn't do that. She says, let it come again and again because I see you, Krishna. And this is what she's indicating here is really important. It's a shift, a subtle shift in our mindset that has a dramatic effect. It means we have to stop seeing ourselves as the victim. We have to see ourselves as the beneficiary of whatever happens in our life, good or bad. And this is something I've been thinking of and talking about for a long time. You ever do this? I do this often. Something happens, I say, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to me? As if life is happening to me. You know, I'm just here, I'm a neutral party and things are just happening to me. The shift that has to take place is that things are not happening to you, things are happening for you. You understand the difference? It's not happening, life is not happening to you. The circumstances are not happening to you, they're happening for you. This is what Kunti Devi is saying. These calamities are coming because then I get to see you. So it's a gift to me, actually. It's not this unfavorable thing. Actually, everything is favorable if I can see you within it. So it's a unique gift to you, or every single one of us, whatever happens in our lives, good or bad. And again, not to downplay, I said in the beginning, I'm speaking philosophically. It's divinely arranged by Krishna. It's not that Krishna doesn't know about COVID-19. I just have to tell you, Krishna, by the way, I'm just praying because there's this thing, COVID-19. He knows. People are losing their jobs. Yeah, he knows. People are suffering. Yeah, he knows. He knows that. But it's a unique gift to every single one of us. There's something within it just for us. Any situation that happens, there's something unique within that situation just for us that Krishna has divinely arranged so we can learn something. Either there's something soft in me that needs to be a little hard, something that was hard that needs to become softened, something I'm very attached to that I need to let go of, something I let go of that I should be more attached to. In every single situation, there's something for you. Krishna's perfectly arranged it for your growth. But we may not believe it, right? We may think, hold on, but that's all nice, again, philosophically, but what does that really mean? So how do we get to see that? How do we see Krishna's hand? Because that's really what we have to see here. Within everything, we have to see, what is Krishna doing? What is Krishna's divine hand arranging specifically within this situation for me to come closer to him? Because he knows me, and he knows me better than I know myself. And in knowing me, he knows exactly what I need. I may not be able to see it. And so if you have the teachings of Queen Kunti, not in the Bhagavatam, but in the actual teachings of Queen Kunti, Prabhupada gives a longer purport to these verses, and particularly this text 8, which is 1:8:25 in the Bhagavatam. Prabhupada cites this verse also from the Srimad Bhagavatam of Lord Brahma. Tattenu kampam susumikshamano. You know that verse is 10:14:8. Could we bring it up? This is a being spoken by Lord Brahma. Srimad Bhagavatam 10:14:8, if we could bring it up. My dear Lord, we'll just go to the translation, Prabhu. My dear Lord, one who earnestly waits for you to bestow your causeless mercy upon him, all the while patiently suffering the reactions of his past misdeeds, in offering you respectful obeisances with his heart, words, and body, is surely eligible for liberation, for it has become his rightful claim. So this is very interesting because in this verse is this word susamikshamano. So samiksha means analysis, to analyze. It means to contemplate. It means to reflect upon. Samiksha. So to contemplate. But here it says susamiksha. Su, putting this preface before, susamiksha means to deeply analyze, to deeply contemplate, to go deeper. Don't just look at things on the superficial level, to like go really deep within it. This is how you're able to see Krishna's hand in something, right? Something's happening to me. No, something's happening for me. It takes deep analysis from me. It takes a deep contemplation and reflection. What is within me, Krishna, that you're trying to indicate? What is it that you're trying to show me? What is it that you're trying to teach me through this? So when you do this, then you start to see Krishna's hand behind everything. And then nothing is victimizing you anymore. Everything is a gift to you then. Rather than being a victim of your circumstances, you become empowered by your circumstances. It propels you forward. It moves you forward. It gets you closer to Krishna. And this is the Bhagavatam, actually. If you read the Srimad Bhagavatam time after time after time, it's just suffering. Practically, someone should do this. You're all very intelligent people. You should create a statistical analysis of how many of the pastimes in the Bhagavatam involve suffering. We don't bet, but I'll bet you that you'd find that most of them involve some kind of suffering. I can think of such, just Dhruva Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj. How many others are suffering in the Bhagavatam? So many. Gajendra, Kashyapa kind of. Hiranyakashipu, he kind of suffers, doesn't he, in the end? It's just suffering after suffering. But that suffering isn't there. It's not Krishna's malevolence to you. He's not trying to harm you. He's being very benevolent to you. We may not believe it. So then we turn to the Bhagavad Gita, 529. You know the verse? Bhaktaram Yagyatapasam, Sarva Loka Maheshwaram, Suridam Sarva Bhutanam, Gyatva Mam Shantim Richati. Okay, so even if we're able to see Krishna's hand behind everything, this Krishna, he's a real bad guy. Why is he making me suffer so much? Why is he making everyone else suffer so much? Well, again, this is from a very limited perspective. So in that verse, 529, Sarva Loka Maheshwaram, everything in this world is moving under Krishna's arrangement. So we just spoke about that. Krishna's divine hand is behind everything. Sarva Loka Maheshwaram, the controller of everything. Okay, so he's controlling everything, but still there's suffering. So he must not be very nice. Next line, Suridam Sarva Bhutanam. Suridam. Suridam, I'm the benefactor. Sarva of all Bhutanam, living entities. I'm the benefactor of all living entities. I'm your best friend. I'm your well-wisher. I love you more than you can ever imagine. This is what Krishna is saying. So he's arranging everything. He's the controller of everything. And he loves you so deeply and so dearly. Now, someone who loves you so deeply and dearly, do you think they're going to do things to harm you? Do you think so? No, of course not. Everything that they do for your benefit because they love you. They want to see you grow. Our problem is that we want to be where we are right now, right? Just accept me as I am. And we think that's what love is. Love is you just accept me as I am. But there's a deeper level to love too, which is, yes, I accept you as you are, but I also see who you can become. I also see that unleashed, untapped potential within you. And because I love you, I'm going to try my best, my utmost to bring that out of you. You may not always like it. Any of you who are parents, this should be ringing bells in your head, because this is what you do sometimes, right? Sometimes you put restrictions or so-called suffering in the lives of your children, and they think, why you must hate me. But you know from a higher level, from a higher perspective, no, this is for your benefit. This is why you have a curfew. This is why you have to do chores. This is why you have to do your homework. This is why you have to go to school. You may not like it. I accept you as you are, but I see who you can become. I see that untapped potential within you, and I want to help you on that journey to unleashing it. And this is what Krishna does for us. Suridam Sarva Bhutanam. He's your best friend. He's your benefactor. He's not putting anything in front of you to make you miserable. He's putting everything in front of you to help you grow and to learn and to come closer to him. And then what happens? Gyatva Mam Shantim Richati. If you understand these two things, Krishna's in charge of everything, and he's my best friend. He loves me more than anyone I can ever imagine. He loves me more than I can ever think of. He controls everything. He loves me that much. Gyatva Mam Shantim Richati. Then you get Shanti. Everyone wants Shanti, right? Then you get peace. You attain peace. Because I understand this. Could be good, it could be bad, it doesn't matter. Krishna's arranging everything. He's my best friend, and I understand this, so now I'm peaceful. So, this is the crux of what's going on in the world right now. We can see it as a great suffering, but we can also see it as a great opportunity. I see one of my friends on the live stream here, I won't mention his name, but every time over the years that we've known each other, he would say, anytime something would come up and I would complain about it, he would say, but what's the opportunity here? This is the same thing right now. What is the opportunity here? I should really think about this. So, because we have some time left, I'm going to just move on to the next verse here, because this is also a very important verse. from the teachings of Queen Kunti. And we all have this. We all have this right now. At least we should have this mindset. 26. Prabhu. My Lord, your Lordship can easily be approached, but only by those who are materially exhausted. One who is on the path of material progress, mine says material progress. Does it say it here? Yeah. Those who are on the path of material progress, trying to improve themselves with respectable parentage, great opulence, high education, and bodily beauty cannot approach you with sincere feeling. So Krishna, you're easily approached actually. But the price I have to pay is I have to be materially exhausted. Anyone feeling materially exhausted right now in the midst of COVID? Some of you put your hands up. I am, for sure. It's hellish, right? Everything's so insecure. You don't know if you're going to have your job next week. Doesn't matter what you do. You could just be minding your own business. This invisible enemy of COVID could come and get you. Because you've got a material body, then you'll suffer. Doesn't make a difference. Like, you could be anywhere. You could be doing anything. I know people didn't leave their house. Somehow they got it. What Kunti Devi here is saying also is very important. And I'm going to segue from here to something else. But she says, one who's on the path of material progress, trying to improve themselves with respectable parentage, great opulence, high education, and bodily beauty, cannot approach you with sincere feeling. So we can confirm this also by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because ultimately we are followers of Mahaprabhu. We are Gaudiya Vaishnavas. So in the Shikshastika, Mahaprabhu says, Na dhanam na janam na sundarim kavitam va jagadisha kame mama janmani janmaneshwari bhavatad bhakti hoitaki twayi. He's basically saying, Queen Kunti Mahaprabhu is saying the same thing here. I don't want any of these things. What happens is we start to take shelter of these things, right? I start to take shelter of my high birth or my education or my job or the security I have in this world, and they're not real shelters. We see that right now. It's very, very shaky ground. It's not a stable foundation. So if I think that's my shelter, then it's very difficult for me to think that Krishna, you're my only shelter actually. Isn't it? At least for me, I think, I have a nice house and I have a good job and I have a good bank account. And then I forget, Krishna, you're the only shelter. But what's being said here, and again, I'm going to preface this because you could read this on a very superficial level and say, well, forget all of these things. Forget having a good education, forget having a nice job, forget all of these things. That's not what's being said. What's actually being said is that those things, they should be subservient to the main thing. So we're making some humble attempt right now to write a book on the Shikshastikam. We've been thinking about this for many years. Very important set of verses in my life. And so we've been trying to write this book for a while now. And in the beginning of that book, in the introduction, I talk about this word priority. So the word priority first came into existence in the 1400s. And it meant, you know what the word priority means? Anyone? Priority.
The hierarchy of tasks.
The what?
The hierarchy of tasks.
The hierarchy of tasks.
I mean, something that comes first.
Something that comes first. That's what it means. So originally it was used, Shraddha Devi, you're about to speak.
Yeah, I was going to say more important.
More important. Yeah, so when it was originally conceived, this word priority meant the one thing that was above everything else. The thing that comes before everything else. The one thing. That was in the 1400s. It wasn't until 1940 that the word went from priority to priorities. So it took 500 years for the one thing above everything else to now become the many things above everything else. The word priority became priorities. And so in the first verse of the Shikshastikam, it ends, the last line, it's Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. So as we know with Sanskrit, when you translate Sanskrit to English, you can go different angles on it. So many places you'll see it says all glories to Shri Krishna Sankirtan. But if you look at the words Param Vijayate, Param means utmost. It means super, like, param atma. We're atmas, we're souls. Param atma, the super soul, the supreme soul. So param in one context means the supreme of something. Param vijayate. Vijayate means victory. Supreme victory to what? Sri Krishna Sankirtan. Supreme victory to Sri Krishna Sankirtan. So let's tie it back to what I'm talking about. Krishna does this to Arjun. Krishna says this to Arjun in the Gita. Because Arjun, one can say, is making the argument, I'm just going to leave everything. I'll just go and live in the forest and be a simple sadhu. Krishna's saying, no, you have to do your duty. So here in Queen Kunti's prayers, let's not forget she's a queen. Right? So she's saying, one who is on the path of material progress, trying to improve themselves with respectable parentage, great opulence, high education, and bodily beauty, cannot approach you with sincere feeling. She's a queen. She has high parentage, right? Doesn't she? Queen means she's probably got some opulence too. High education? Well, you'd think she's a queen. She probably got educated very well. Beauty? Yeah, it's described. She's very beautiful. So she has all of these things. She's saying this. So param vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. Not that you discard all these things. Don't get an education. Don't take care of your body. Don't do anything. But amongst all of those things, param vijayate, make Shri Krishna the thing that's supremely victorious in your life. That's the first verse of the Shikshastakam. That's what Mahaprabhu is saying. You live in this world. There's so many things you have to do. There's so many responsibilities. But in the list of priorities, make the number one priority, Shri Krishna. Param vijayate. Make that the supremely victorious thing. You may have so many desires. You may have so many aspirations. Nothing wrong with that. You're a human being. You can't become desireless. That's, although some people may tell you, you can't. So amongst all of those desires, don't forget, param vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtan. Make Shri Krishna the most victorious thing in your life. So that's what Queen Kunti is saying in this next verse that we just read. So we can go on from this verse too, because we're kind of going back and forth. So we read the Nadhanam Najanam Nasundaram verse. So in that verse, how does it end? Can we go to the Shikshastakam? We'll go to Nadhanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitam Va Jagadishakame Mama Janmani Janmanishwari Bhavatad Bhakti Hoitaki Twai. There we go. So here now we see in the Shikshastakam, verse 4, Prabhu. Oh yeah, you can go to the translation, please. Actually, that's my fault. Yes, let's go to translation, verse 4. So here again, we see in the Sanskrit of this verse, bhavatad, right? That's what Mahaprabhu said, bhavatad bhakti rohitaki twayi. And in the two verses that we read from Queen Kunti's prayers, bhavato is also there, same word. That nadanam najanam nasanur, I don't want wealth, I don't want beautiful women or beautiful people of the opposite sex, I don't want followers, respect, fame, adoration, Facebook followers, clicks, likes. If Mahaprabhu was here today, he'd probably update it a little bit and say these things, because that's kind of more pressing in our time. I don't want any of those things. Are not my concern, because those things only have meaning. Because if somehow or other I have to take birth again and again and again, which I know for me I probably will have to, because I've got a long way to go. My only concern is this: Bhavatad Bhakti Ahoitaki Twai, your causeless devotional service. That's my only concern, actually. All these other things, if they don't come, no problem. But the one thing that should come, the one thing that must be there, the one thing that I'm supremely concerned about is your devotional service. Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. You can tie it all back to each other. That's what I care about. That's all I care about. Okay, I have to maintain, I have responsibilities. I have so many other things I have to do. That's fine. But the main thing I'm concerned about is this. And then what happens actually? What happens after that? If you can come to that level, if you can follow Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam, if you can make Shri Krishna the supremely victorious thing in your life, that means everything else, Dhanam, Janam, Sundarim, all these things take a back seat. Then you come to the last verse of the Shikshastakam. Anyone know the last verse of Shikshastakam? Please. Ashlisha. Yeah. And that's Chaitanya Prabhu. You couldn't hear him, but he got it perfect. Let's open the last verse of Shikshastakam. Because again, you'll see another word that's in there, that's in the prayers that we just read from Queen Kunti. But the translation is, whether you handle me roughly by your embrace, or you make me brokenhearted by not being present before me. Oh, okay, now the translation. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me brokenhearted by not being present before me. He's completely free to do anything and everything, for he's always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Hare Krishna. So this is what happens. Paramvijayata, you make Krishna the most victorious thing in your life, then this happens. Whether he handles you roughly, whether he makes you brokenhearted, whether he plagues you with the COVID, whether you lose your job, whether your health. Anyway, you can do as you wish. You're always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. But if we go up to the Sanskrit, 1 second. Sorry, I should prepare for these things. We'll go to Adarshanam. Adarshana, marma, hatam, karotuva. Adarshanam. So there's the word darshan again. You know, even if you don't. So Queen Kunti is saying, when I see the suffering comes to me, I have darshan of you. And here what's being said is like, even if I don't have darshan of you, no problem. Because actually the real darshan of you is in my heart. The real darshan of you is to see you in everything that's coming my way. Whether I see you standing in front of me or not, can I see you in everything? That's Krishna consciousness. That's Krishna consciousness. It's a very high level, isn't it? It's a very high thing, isn't it? Someone can say, this is high level, Prabhu, I'm sorry. Yeah, but Krishna consciousness is high level. It is. That's exactly what it is. So we should know what we're aspiring for. We may not be there today, but at least we should have some understanding. This is what I'm aspiring for. This is where I'm trying to go. Something else here, which is interesting. Who is speaking this Shikshastakam? Who just spoke this last verse? Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, right? And who's Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? He's Krishna, who's come in the mood of Radharani. So in the mood of Radharani is saying this verse. And who's Radharani? She's the highest devotee. So the highest devotee is saying, anyway, you can do what you want with me. You can break my heart. You can make me suffer. You know, this is the highest devotee. When we talk about following the footsteps, whose footsteps should we follow in? We should follow in the footsteps of those who are along the path further than us. We should follow in the footsteps of those who are at that level, praying earnestly to get there ourselves. High thing, it's a very high thing. So then it can seem hopeless. Anyone feel hopeless right now? Yeah, me too. It seems hopeless, and it is hopeless. It's hopeless to get to that level if you think you can do it on your own. Then yes, extremely hopeless. Because actually what's supposed to happen, going back now in Shikshastakam, Trinadapi, Sunichena, Troeva Sahashanana, Amanena, Manadena, Kirtaniya Sadahari. Actually, you have to become humble. So it's hopeless if I think I can do it myself. That shouldn't depress you. It should make you humble. Why should you become humble? Not because you're so small and you're so fallen, but because Krishna consciousness is so high. This thing is so high. This thing is so unbelievably out of reach that I've become humbled in front of it. And when I become humbled in front of it, what happens? Then the grace of Krishna can flow to me. If you're not humble, then Krishna's grace is not flowing to you, actually. If you think, anyway, I got this. Again, let's go back to the beginning. I'm okay. I'm great. Everything's wonderful. COVID, come on. I'll take you on. If you're that arrogant, Krishna thinks, okay, you got it. Krishna is very merciful also. You think you got it? Okay, you got it. No problem. But Krishna, actually, I don't have it. I'm not great, Krishna. I'm terrible. Because I'm in a hopeless place. I'm in a hopeless condition. All I want is you. And the only way I can get you is if you're merciful to me. And what you're offering me is so high. I'm so unqualified for it that I've just become humble. And if you give it to me as a gift, I'll accept it. And I promise you I'll take care of it. And not only will I take care of it, I'll share it with other people too. That's what Mahaprabhu says in the third verse. You become humble, and then when you become humble, then you can chant the holy name eternally. Because Krishna will allow you to do it. So what an opportunity we have right now. Right? You may have been the president of your company. You may have been the president of a country. You have to become humble right now in the midst of all of this. It's a great opportunity for devotees, actually. You know? It's a really important time to take inventory of ourselves and see what's happening to me internally while all this is going on. I just spoke to a friend of mine, and he was telling me it's the most blissful time. It's the most blissful time in my life. Why? Because I can't go anywhere. So I'm just at home, and I get to chant, and I get to worship my deities. I get to read. I get to do so many things. It's so blissful, actually. And I was thinking, wow, this is a devotee. This is someone, like, I should put my head at this person's feet. All this other stuff, no, there was not even a mention of like, yeah, I might lose my job. This might happen, that might happen. It's the most blissful time in my life. So anyway, we jumped about here a little bit. We went from Queen Kunti's prayers, and somehow Shikshastra can forgive me. It's just on my mind a lot. But this is it for us as devotees, you know? We should really see this. We should see Krishna's hand in everything, good, bad, ugly, whatever it is. What is it, Krishna, that you're trying to show me? What is it, Krishna, that you're revealing to me through this? That's our job. Everything is a gift that's given to you by Krishna. Everything. You may not like it, but you have to unwrap it, right? You might not like, here's a better way to say it. It's a gift from Krishna. And just like any good gift, it comes wrapped up nicely. You might not like the wrapping paper, but you have to take the wrapping paper off to see what's inside. So the calamities, the suffering, the obstacles, all these things, that's just the wrapping paper. Don't stop there. Susamikshmano, go deeper. Go deeper. Don't stop at the wrapping paper. Take the wrapping paper off. See what's actually there for you. It takes courage to do that. It takes a lot of courage to do that, because you have to like take inventory of your own heart. You have to look within yourself and see, what is it? What is it that's holding me back right now? What is it that's stopping me from getting closer to Krishna? And what is he revealing to me through this circumstance that's supposed to help me overcome that? It takes courage. It's not just a passive thing. Krishna consciousness is not a passive thing, actually. It's an active thing. Krishna consciousness, you have to put your consciousness into it. You have to think about it. So anyway, these are just some thoughts, forgive me. But this is what we're experiencing right now with COVID-19. We're experiencing a great opportunity. Krishna's given us a great gift, actually. Right? One of the things people say, I don't have time. I don't have time. Well, a lot of people got a lot of time right now. Right? You may even still be working, but you're not driving to work, sitting in traffic. Actually, there's less distractions. All you have to do is turn off the news a little bit. Get off the news. Don't look at social media so much. And you'll see, you have so much time. Krishna's giving this great opportunity to go deep. Susamiksha, like dive deep into this thing. What is it? Universally, there's some lesson for all of us, like globally. There's collective karma, there's also a collective lesson to be learned. But don't forget, individually, there's also something in this for us. Each and every single one of us. Krishna knows us so uniquely. And he's your best friend, Suridam Sarva Bhutanam. Sarva Loka Maheshwaram, he's controlling everything. And he's controlling it in such a way that he's giving you something unique. Unwrap the gift. That's my message, is you unwrap the gift. Take this time to unwrap the gift that he's giving you and see what's really inside. And what I'll bet you this, again, we don't gamble, but I'll bet you this anyway, is when you unwrap that gift, you'll find the depth of joy that like you can't even imagine it right now. You'll find such inner satisfaction. You'll find such inner connection that this will be the greatest blessing that ever happened to you, this COVID-19, actually. Again, I'll just end by the same preface that I had in the beginning. I'm speaking philosophically here. This is our job as devotees, is that we speak philosophy. We speak philosophically. I'm not a medical doctor. And in no way, shape or form am I saying be irresponsible right now. I'm saying the opposite. Krishna says to Arjuna, I said this in the beginning, you have to do your duty, but do it in consciousness of me. So again, be careful, wear the masks, socially distance, wash your hands, all of these things. But don't forget Krishna in all of that. And take shelter of the teachings of Queen Kunti. And take shelter of the Shikshastakam, because it's such a powerful, powerful lesson, teachings of Mahaprabhu. So I'll stop there. We have about 20 minutes left. And we'll take some questions. And Madhava Prem Prabhu is going to field the questions, because I think some of you have been sending them in. And then we'll go with the online questions, and then in person, I'll be here afterwards. We can talk. Distant, of course, we'll be distant. Please, Prabhu.
So there are 3 comments right now. So one is by Shada Devi Dasi. Power phrase: things do not happen to you, they happen for you. Look for the lesson to learn.
Yeah, it's a very important thing. Don't be the victim in your circumstances. Don't think things are happening to you. They're happening for you, uniquely. It's hard to see it in the middle of something that's very intense, you know? Susamiksha, so contemplate. Analyze it deeply. It's a gift. Krishna's giving you a gift. You may not like the gift, but that's just the wrapping paper. Thank you, Shraddha Devi.
So the other one is also by Shada Devi Dasi. It's a reflection.
Hey.
Real darshan is seeing Krishna in your heart and in everything. From prayers of Queen Kunti, Bhavato Darshanam.
Yeah, that's the real darshan, right? So again, Mahaprabhu in the mood of Radharani is saying, even if you're not present before me, even if you make me brokenhearted, you're still my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. That's the darshan. The darshan is seva, actually a seva darshan. It isn't like the person darshan, it's seva darshan. That can I continue serving you even if you're not in front of me?
Okay, so the last one is also by Shada Devi Dasi. It's a power phrase.
Hey, Shraddha Devi's got the hat trick.
Unwrap the gift that Krishna has given you in these COVID times.
Yeah, in these COVID times and in all times. See, I'll say that again because it's important for me to remember also. Even the adverse circumstances, the adversity is just the wrapping paper. So we may not like the wrapping paper, but the gift inside, we have to find out what that is. And it takes some analysis on our part. And in all circumstances, not just during COVID. Because circumstances may be adverse, doesn't mean that our consciousness has to be adverse. Right? Just because the circumstances are adverse, doesn't mean that my consciousness has to be adverse. And can I look at this, if we go back, instead of being the victim, being the beneficiary, when I see something as adverse, can it empower me to move forward? Right? Can it empower me to move forward? Because you do this in other areas of your life as well. Like in other areas of our life, if we see that my car has a flat tire, I don't just sit there and say, oh, why do I have a flat tire? Krishna, you're so like unkind to me. No, I fix the flat tire, then I go about my business. So same thing here. In any circumstance, unwrap the gift.
Thank you so much. I have a question. How
Please.
can we remember that? Because now we know that we must know that Krishna is there in every part of our life, whether it's good or bad, and we should remember that. But what is a practical way to remember that?
Yeah, I'm not so practical. But what I'll say is Paramvijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. The practical way is that you make your sadhana, you make your practice to connect to Krishna as the foremost thing in your life. Because when you do that, then you'll start to see Krishna, you know? Otherwise, it's just very theoretical, right? Gyan and vigyan. Gyan means just theoretical knowledge, and vigyan means realize. I've realized it. And the realization comes through practice. And the more that you practice, the more that things start to make sense, right? So I just spoke of the Shikshastakam and I jumped around. I went from like the 4th verse to the 1st verse to the 9th verse, back to the 4th verse. And I could have done a bunch in the middle, but time is short. But why is it that I'm able to do that right now? It's because for the last few months, all I've been thinking about is the Shikshastakam. Because I've been thinking about, I want to write this book on the Shik. I've been thinking about it for so long. So what's the word? you know, I was thinking about it and I spent time with it. I associated with it, and I wrestled with it a little bit. I kind of wrestled with it, trying to understand it. What does this mean? What does that mean? How does this connect to this thing? And so what's practical? What's practical is that take your spiritual life very seriously. When you're chanting your rounds, take it very seriously. That's how you start to see Krishna. When you're reading, when you're associating with devotees, when you're serving, take it very seriously. And by taking it seriously, it doesn't mean like become very like stern and stoic and like have fun while you do it. But take it seriously means like put your consciousness into it. Krishna consciousness. Don't go on autopilot. So what's practical? Chant very good rounds, read regularly, associate with devotees regularly. It's the same old, simple, very, very simple. The answer, I find this when I give classes, some people ask questions, I always give the same answer. But that's the answer, right? Focus on your sadhana, focus on your sangha, and focus on your seva. And if you do that, then prema is just around the corner. And when there's prema, now we're talking business. When there's prema, then you see your beloved everywhere. Everything will remind you. Every single thing. Because now I have real love, you know. Krishna's opened that up within me. I don't know if that answered the question, Monisha. Please forgive me.
No, it did. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. Dear Seva Prabhu unmuted his mic.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Anand Pranam. I joined a little late, but it looks like you were talking about adverse conditions. When devotees face adverse conditions, how do we turn those adverse conditions into favorable conditions for practice bhakti? That's a very serious question. So there were times in my own life where I went through some really adverse conditions. And I was like questioning Krishna. You know, I surrendered to you and you put me into this very, adverse condition. So I was like, even though I was like, praying to Krishna, chanting my rounds, it was all superficial. It wasn't really, feeling that bliss, that Krishna is my worshipable God. That, Krishna really takes care of me. So I lost that hope that Krishna really takes care of the devotees. So it was just a technical, it was just a superficial relationship. So that Krishna, Krishna is my worshipable Lord. I don't have that, I lost that faith. But, I don't know, something miracle happened. Things turned around. I don't know how it turned around. Maybe because of me moving places. I don't know, or maybe because of circumstances, which I did not ask Krishna. Hey, Krishna, please turn around this. So it's all of a sudden things took a very different shape, and then I started feeling again, Krishna really takes care of his devotees. Krishna is my worshipable Lord. So that as you said, it was years and years. It was like dry. It was not. I wasn't feeling Krishna as my worshipable God. I surrendered my life. I sincerely surrendered to his lotus feet. I surrendered my life, but Krishna made my life so miserable that this is not Krishna consciousness. This is Krishna is really has pushed me. Krishna has really pushed me into a situation where he made my life so miserable. So, but Krishna is really maybe it was a temporary period or something like that. Krishna changed circumstances and situation where I don't see that adversity anymore. I just want to share that.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing, Prabhu. You know what was miraculous? I'll tell you what's miraculous. Why it suddenly turned around is because Krishna loves you and you love Krishna. So sometimes he puts you. Prabhupada speaks this, and we're getting a little bit too esoteric. He speaks about Prabhupada said this in a conversation, so forgive me, this is what he said. You heard of these love bites? You know this? Sometimes there's these love bites, they call them. In the heat of connection, there's a little biting. Prabhupada says that sometimes Krishna gives love bites to his devotees. He bites you a little bit, but it's out of his love. And we'll think about it this way also. I went a bit too esoteric on that one, I shouldn't have said that. But anyway, and that is that surrender doesn't always mean it's going to be to our liking, right? Surrender doesn't mean it's always going to be pleasant and to my liking. And who is the great example of this? Well, we just read the last verse of the Shikshastakam, spoken by Mahaprabhu in the mood of Radharani. Who loves Krishna more than Radharani? I can't think of many. He leaves her. He doesn't stay with her. She's brokenhearted. You read this in the Bhagavatam. You can see this in other places too. Our acharyas speak about this. She goes mad. She doesn't know how to dress herself. She's speaking to the bumblebee about Krishna. She's still surrendered. She still loves Krishna. Krishna still loves her too. That's the other thing. Krishna still loves her too. How do we get there? We have to try and see Krishna's hand behind everything. But thank you for sharing that. It was wonderful. Russell G., my dear friend from the East Coast, please, you unmuted your mic.
Thank you. I'm very honored and humbled to be a part of this group. So thank you for letting me share Sangha with you all. My question to stump the Master Prabhu is, so if we see ourselves in service to the devotees around us and to the non-devotees as well as all creations of Krishna, when we see suffering, so we see the suffering of others in COVID or in people who are, starving, those kind of things, but maybe they are not Krishna conscious. How, can you give some advice on how to keep Krishna at the center of our thoughts and presence around those things when we see that suffering in this material world, but maybe by people who don't have who aren't open to the idea of seeing it as this is a blessing that Krishna is giving them?
Well, one thing I'd say is it's not a question of whether one's Krishna conscious or not. It's a question from our perspective. From our perspective, everyone is part and parcel of Krishna. Whether they're forgetful of that relationship or not, there's not much we can do. But for us, we see everyone as deeply dear to Krishna and connected to Krishna. It's interesting what you bring up, because something I was thinking about also, devotees sometimes can do this, but many people can do it. We talk about, hey, it's your karma, man. That's your karma. Isn't it? You're suffering, that's your karma. Anyway, there's a thing called karma, so you must have done something. And anyway, whatever, it's your karma. And you can become a little cold-hearted when you think like that. It's true, people have karma. But for us, on this line, particularly following Mahaprabhu, compassion outweighs karma every day of the week. Mahaprabhu says, to hell with your karma. Right? You see this with Lord Nityananda. He goes to Jagai and Madai. Anyway, I don't care about your karma. I don't care who you are, what your consciousness is like. Anyway, I'm here to just give to you and serve you. So compassion outweighs, I was going to say compassion trumps karma any day of the week, but Trump is a hot topic, so I won't say that. But I already said it now. Compassion, it outweighs karma every single day of the week. So we see everyone as the object of our service. Now, how you serve them is very unique. I don't think there's a universal answer to that. It depends on the person, it depends on your relationship, it depends on where they are in their consciousness, depends where you are in your consciousness. But ultimately, the real thing is that you have to put yourself in the spirit of serving them, and you figure out what that means. It could be as simple as saying hello to them. It could be as simple as checking in with them. How are you doing? It doesn't have to be okay, now let's get together and chant and do this and that and the other. Someone may not be there, and we may not be there. So how do we deal with them? I think it's individual. I think you did stump me because it's a hard question to answer. Because one of the most important aspects of Krishna consciousness is to understand that we're all individuals. Yeah, there's oneness, yes, in spirit, but there's difference also. Individuality is never lost within Krishna consciousness. So while we can speak some very blanket universal principles, what your particular question I think is very, very individualistic. I think it depends on the person. But what we can speak about is your consciousness within that. And your consciousness is, you're my Prabhu. Whether you know you're my Prabhu or not, you're my Prabhu. Whether you're Krishna conscious or not. Anyway, I'm here to serve you. Because that's what, we all often talk about this. We call everyone else Prabhu, but we're Das. Right? We're Das. Das means servant, but actually in some places, Sanskrit also, Das means slave. Slave doesn't, whether you're a good master, bad master, anyway, I'm just here to serve. I'm your Das. So again, I don't know if that answered the question, but you can call me anytime. You have my number and we can speak about it. Anyone else? We have 3 minutes left.
Thank you.
There are some more coming in, Prabhu. Should I read them?
Yes, please. I'm your servant.
Namsmaran, Prabhu, reflection. The other side of COVID-19, which allows us to go deep into Krishna consciousness, is very inspiring.
Thank you.
Next one by Kautukarna Prabhu, reflection. When one sees Krishna, one does not see the material ocean of happiness and distress, because one sees Krishna in both happiness and distress.
Yeah. Actually, this kind of ties into Russell's question also a little bit. Right? So Rupa Goswami, he tells us the 3 levels of devotees. Kanishta, Madhyam, and Uttama Adhikari. So one of the things that's described about the Uttama Adhikari, this is like the highest level of devotee. They see Krishna in everything. They see everyone as Krishna's devotee. They're so saturated with Krishna consciousness, they can't see anything separate to Krishna actually. Right? And so this is Prabhu, Prabhu, what you're saying here is, we can tie it into Russell's question a little bit, is that, yeah, we see Krishna happiness, distress, up, down, left, right, upside down, black, white, lights on, lights off. Any day of the week, I'm just trying to see Krishna. And if I can see that, then everything's amazing. It may not feel that way in the moment. It may not feel that way in the moment. It may not even feel that way externally. I cited Radharani. Externally, she's suffering, but internally, that suffering is like the greatest joy, because it makes her think of Krishna always. And that's what Queen Kunti is saying in the first verse that we read today also. Thank you. Very nice comments. Any more, Prabhu? We have 1 minute left.
Yeah, there are 3 more I can...
3 more, okay.
So there is a question by Anonymous. When we chant, we oftentimes can't see Krishna directly reciprocating with us and lose motivation. How do we see Krishna reciprocating and be motivated when it's not direct?
Well, in 1 minute, it's very difficult to answer, but what I'll say is, anyway, whether Krishna reciprocates with you or not, that's not what your worry is. Your concern is, I'm here to serve you, Krishna. Whether you serve me in return or not, that's up to you. But what I'll say is, you'll start to feel Krishna, and Krishna will reveal to you. We'll go back to Manisha's answer, same thing. Be very strict in your sadhana. That means be serious about it. Make it a regular thing in your life. Be very careful about your sangha. Make sure that you're inserting good association, and find some seva that you can regularly do. And if you do those things, you'll see Krishna's reciprocation. Krishna's always reciprocating, right? It's like a radio. People don't use radios anymore, but there's thousands and millions of frequencies, signals flying through the sky. I have to tune my radio to the right one. So Krishna's always reciprocating with us. We just have to tune our consciousness to be able to see how he's reciprocating. How do you do that? You just carry on and you find good association and find good guidance. Find good guidance in your life, because these questions will come up and someone can help you reorient your angle of vision on it. And they can point out to you, this is what Krishna is doing for you. This is what Krishna is revealing to you. Again, that question is a whole class in and of itself. But hey, we're at 6:15. I always go late, so I don't want to go late today. I always get in trouble. What should I do? Anyone? I guess I'm in charge. Thank you all so much. It's a great honor to be here with all of you. And please be very careful, be very diligent, but don't forget Krishna in the midst of all of this. There's something here for you. You have to find it. Unwrap the gift. Take the wrapping paper off and find out what's within it for you. Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Kunti Devi ki. Shri Shikshastakam ki. COVID-19 opportunities key.
Jai.
Jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you all so
Hare
much.
Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Anantadev Prabhu ki jai.
Jai.
Hare Bol. Thank you all so much. We'll see you on the next broadcast. Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Right, bro, we'll be ending now.
Hare
Thank you for joining.